Welcome to The Founder's Mind. This is your host, Adam Muchler. On today's episode, I have Sian Morson, the founder and CEO of Kollective Mobile. Listen to Sian share about all of her experience in the startup world and learn how, in her words, she is the ultimate multi-hyphenate. Welcome, Sian.
Hey, glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for hopping on. Tell us a little bit about what you're working on at the moment.
At the moment, I have a software development company called Kollective Mobile, and I've run that for the last 7 years or so. So that's still going along. New developments there is for the longest time, we have been working with startups and entrepreneurs and a lot of ad agencies as primarily as our client. And I think now with the just the way that things are going politically, this new administration, we're finding that we're getting a lot more purpose-driven, I think, clients. Sure. And that's kind of exciting. And that's kind of interesting because I think being here in the Bay Area, we have seen no shortage of, technology for the sake of technology.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting to now start working with clients who are interested in actually using technology to change the world, to make a difference. And so that's a new development in the business that is evolving, but that we're excited about. So there's that. I'm also entrepreneur in residence with Cross Culture Ventures, which is a seed stage venture capital firm. They're actually based in LA, and I'm the only one based here in the Bay, but I've been working with them for the past 6 months as an EIR, really just trying to learn as much about venture capital as I can. Late last year, I became a limited partner in Backstage Capital, which is run by Arlen Hamilton. So I think, VC is something that I've been interested in for a really long time. And so I'm excited to sort of take a 360-degree view of venture capital by doing the EIR program and by being a founder that's had an exit and also an LP. So I'm excited about that as well.
So it sounds like you're only wearing, a couple hats.
Yeah, just coasting along here. Plenty of time in the day to do everything I need to do.
Yeah. I try and do like at least a little bit of research.
Mm-hmm.
And I have LinkedIn, and I've got, you have a great website. I love your website. It's very informative as to the work that you've done and what you're up to. Mm-hmm. I'm curious with founders, what was sort of the tipping point of getting into your own work?
When you say my own work, are you
like when you created a company, when you stopped working for someone else and said, I'm going to build something myself?
Mm-hmm.
Or not yourself, but you're going to be the driver of the building.
Right.
Obviously, you work with people.
So I think that was something that was always there, in a sense. I think for better or for worse, I wasn't ready to mm-hmm. pursue it previously. And I just got to a point, I've got a history in advertising, being a project manager. And I had been mumbling to myself, it makes me sound crazy, but I've been thinking to myself for quite some time that the traditional agency model needed to change. And I didn't really see a way to change it from within. I thought it was just, I would have to step out and do my own thing, and I don't know how much you know about agencies, but, it's like big agencies, they vie for clients, they want to become agency of record, they charge big retainers, they assign a big team, and I just felt like little by little, the innovation and the creativity was being sucked out of, whatever we were doing. And so I think that was part of the impetus for me to do that. I I also like to say that I'm West Indian, so the idea of having more than one job is not foreign to me, and that just sort of that just sort of aligns with the ethos of being an immigrant, right?
Yeah.
And doing what you need to do to to get it done. And
Yeah.
so I was just always like, well, at some point I need to go off and do this. I have had this idea rumbling in the back of my mind. And so I think, finally at around 2010 was the right moment I felt for me to do that.
How did you take that leap? Because it's a big leap.
um, I thought about it for probably about 3 months, and then I was leading a subsidiary of a larger agency when I would decided to. So it wasn't like I could give like 2 weeks notice. I had to give. Well, I felt, in order to be responsible and to assist in finding someone new to take over, that I should give us a lot more notice. So I believe I gave 3 months notice after I thought about it long and hard for 3 months and set everything up. And then I gave 3 months notice and agreed to do any training, and made sure that the transition was smooth for my team. So I did that. And funnily enough, the CEO at the time thought that I was bluffing. He thought that I just really, like, this was a negotiation tactic and I wanted more money. And so he didn't, in fact, he refused to try to find someone to replace me until like a month out, when he was like, okay, so what do you want? And I was like, I don't want anything. I really am leaving. And you really should try to find someone to replace me. And I think he let it go for another week. And then he sent the COO in to ask me to stay an extra month. And I said, no, I literally gave you 3 months and I'm ready to go do this thing. And I have to do this thing. And I would feel really horribly if I didn't do it and now just sat around for another month after this. So, we did it that way. And we're actually really good friends now, he and I, but
Sure.
he didn't think that I was ready to do it. And I was, and I did. And I'm glad that I did. I mean, I will say this, it was terrifying.
Sure.
It was probably one of the scariest things that I've ever done.
Okay.
But as I always say as well, it's definitely one of the most rewarding things I've ever done,
Yeah. I'm always enamored by this picture of entrepreneurship and starting your own company of being like very glamorous.
Oh,
and and like the ultimate, it is amazing if you have the stomach for it and it excites you.
It really kind of reveals to you who you really are. And I also often say that everyone doesn't have to be an entrepreneur, right? If you aren't cut out for it, no one's forcing you to do it. It's a different kind of person. And I think that if I'd not done it when I had, eventually I think I would have gotten here, because it's just kind of how I'm wired.
Yeah.
But it's definitely not for everyone. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I come from a family of entrepreneurs, not famous ones, just people that have their own business,
Exactly.
And so my mom has her own business. My dad, my brother, my grandparents have been retired, but have been artists and writers for as long as I can remember. And so the notion of doing your own thing was baked into my childhood.
Yeah.
Like it was just what my family did. So I think sometimes you have these examples everywhere, and sometimes you have people that break into the space.
Yeah.
That say there's this itch or something pulling. You mentioned West Indian and sort of this idea of many hats to get things done is part of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
What gets you energized about the work you're doing now? I mean, you're doing a lot of things. You're doing this thing out of cross cultural ventures, and you've got your company, and you're an LP, at a VC
Mhm.
company in backstage. What gets you
Mhm.
excited about the work, and what gets you energized about the work that you're doing?
What gets me excited about the new direction that we've taken with Collective Mobile is making a difference. I think, for and I could be wrong with this assumption. I think when I first started the company and we're making apps, there were a few apps that we created that I wasn't particularly proud of. You know what I mean? And it's not my job to be proud of them. People pay us to create their apps, but you know what I mean? We don't get, but there was some where I was just kind of like, what? Why are you building this application?
Yes.
Like, what is the real driving reason behind this? I don't understand it. And I think that now, I can speak with a sense of pride about some of the work that we've done.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that I wasn't proud before. It was just that, it wasn't like, this is really going to make a difference,
Yeah.
Um, one of our clients is, I think she is flying to South Africa to present an app that we created to a group of doctors. The
Mm-hmm.
app was around reproductive health for women in the developing world. And so stuff like that gets, you know what I mean? That's exciting because that it's not going to be some random app that someone's just going to download and have on their phone for maybe a couple of weeks and then they're going to delete it. This is really sort of changing lives, or the goal is to change lives anyway. With the work that I'm doing in terms of VC, I think that that's equally as impactful. I think that there's a real opportunity to make a change from the I think being a Black woman who has a software development company in Silicon Valley I don't think that that's a small thing. And I think it's a way to sort of change the narrative, but I think there's bigger work to do when it comes to VC, right? I think that we've done a significant amount of work with encouraging women and people of color to start their own businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And I know people talk about, oh, where's the Black Zuckerberg? I don't think we're going to the Black Zuckerberg unless there's significant VC funding going to those companies, right? Because it's one thing to start a company,
Yeah.
but to scale a company, you need money. You need a significant amount of money.
Yeah.
That only happens through the VC system.
Yeah.
And so I think that seeing people like me in a position to make decisions like that could change things. So that's why I'm really excited. I think
Yeah.
on both, it's just about the ability to be able to make a significant change.
Well, something that I'm always curious about, and I know that I do executive coaching and I work with founders and executives of startups and different entrepreneurs. And there are all these conversations that we have internally
Mm-hmm.
that can get in the way.
Yeah.
And I think it's the difference between, you mentioned Zuckerberg, it's the difference between being a Zuckerberg or a Warren Buffett and not, is like putting those conversations to bed.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's a conversation that you've been working through, if you're willing to share, that you've been able to sort of put to bed?
Oh, just that I'm not good enough, that I don't belong there. And I that's something that I still deal with to this day. But I think I've been able to push it. It comes back. Believe you me, it comes back. But I've sort of, how do I put this? I've sort of gotten comfortable with being uncomfortable, if that makes any sense. It sort of drives me, and I move through the discomfort by pushing that voice out. And then when I get to the other side, I always am like, oh, that wasn't that bad. So it empowers me to be able to push through something else that I think I shouldn't be doing, or push to be somewhere that I think I don't belong.
Yeah.
But those are, I do realize that some people don't get past that. But you just have to. You really, really have to, or you really won't. you won't do much, and you won't reach your full potential, and that would be such a waste, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree.
Yeah.
What,
And it's important to know that a lot of people, especially people that we think are successful, struggle with that as well, right?
yeah.
It's not
How,
like some people think, oh, it's just me. And it's like, no, it's not. It's not at all. We all go through that.
yeah. Howard Schultz, the former CEO of Starbucks, talked about that. He said one thing that CEOs don't talk enough about publicly is the doubt that everyone has.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Right, like the doubt. And but when he said everyone, he meant like himself and other elite, CEOs, like the top 1% of CEOs that we actually hear about and admire.
Yeah.
I think it's a great point. Do you have any, besides being comfortable with being uncomfortable, which I understand from the work that I do you have any advice or tips on developing that comfort?
The way that I do it is I journal. I've kept a journal since I was probably about 9. And I have volumes and volumes and volumes of my doubt
Wow.
in books. And so for me, sometimes it helps to go back and read where I was a year ago, where I was 5 years ago, what I was struggling with, and to be able to say, hey, here's what you thought, and here's where you really are. That's amazing. I just think it helps because the mind is so powerful. It can, if I don't stop my mind, that thing just goes and goes and goes and goes. And sometimes I think writing just helps me to process some of it out and just to get it out. Even if it's not the most positive thing, at least I've written it out. I've left it there on the page, and I can always come back and revisit it. But once I get that out of my system in that way, then I can move on to more important things.
Yeah, it's we have a supercomputer on our shoulders, and we have to learn at least a couple tricks to keep it focused or to keep
Absolutely.
it on its tracks.
Yeah, definitely. That and running helps me. I can lace up and go for a long run and just process stuff out that way. So that helps too.
Nice. Yeah, I have a similar. I don't run a lot, although I should definitely run more. But I actually find I experience some of the more clear moments when I run, because there doesn't seem to be anything in the way.
No. Yeah, I definitely, I like you, I should probably run more. I think I've been caught up in moving, so I haven't gotten out as much as I've liked, but it is one thing that I can always look to, to help clear my mind or lift my mood. Yeah.
What I'm always curious about advice. There's tons of advice out there. What's one of the better pieces of advice you've received as a founder in your founder role?
As a founder?
Yeah.
Let me see. I mean, I've gotten so much, but I probably the best one was from someone that I worked with, one of the few people that I told I was going off to start my business, and I was nervous and I was scared, and he said, and I often actually I've started to give this advice to founders as well. It's like, if you're thinking of doing something, just do it now. Don't overthink it. Just do it. What's the worst that can happen? Don't wait. And that's what he told me. And I think that was definitely that stayed with me. It has stayed with me. And it really was, I was like, okay, I'm ready. I've got to do this, sit around for 6 more months and think about it. So I think that was a great piece of advice. I will step it up a notch and tell you, I was talking to a VC. I try to speak to as many VCs as I can because I'm trying to learn so much. And I was speaking with Aileen Lee, who is a powerhouse venture capitalist. She coined the term unicorn. And
Popular term these days.
yeah, I was asking, how do I balance everything? And she was like, look, we need you on the field. You know what I mean? Just we need you on the field. Like, figure out the best balance for all the other stuff, but people need to see you. People need to know that you exist. And I think that just really, after meeting with her and driving back to Oakland, it just kind of lit a fire. And I think it was the right thing for her to say to me at the right time. So
yeah.
That's probably the second best piece of advice that I've gotten.
We got 1 and 2, and I bet at different times they're interchangeable.
Absolutely. But she just basically was. I respond better to that kind of like, you know what, just do it kind of thing. I'm not one that likes to be coddled. I don't coddle. So when you can just cut to the chase and tell me, I respond better, and I think we needed to hear that.
Well, there's also so much more in life telling us not to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, whether it's just, like historical context, cultural, your community, there's usually so much saying, don't do the thing that's risky.
Yeah.
Because it's not the safest bet.
Right.
But then it comes to that conversation that you had when they asked you to stay for a month. It's like, but then I'm just going to literally be wasting away for a month.
Yeah. And my soul would be so unhappy because it knows what it needs to do, Yeah. So, yeah. I definitely think if you are not pursuing those things that you need to, I do believe that a little bit of you dies every I do. I think, and it's not like, I don't mean a literal death.
I understand.
Just something just slips away. You have to do these things,
What's one thing now you wish you had known when you started your founder journey?
Well, I think probably a couple of things, but one of the things that I know now that I didn't think I knew, well, I definitely didn't know when I started my business, was just I'm able now to understand the ebb and flow of my business in a way that I didn't before, in terms of just when things are going to come in. So now I understand that, and I think I had to have been doing it for a few years to really get it, right? Is that the summers are kind of slow and mellow. Not as many people want apps, but the minute the fall hits, right through till the new year, it's just ridiculously busy. And I didn't know that in the first few years. I freaked out every summer. I just lost it. And now I'm like, oh, so now I can actually have a vacation because, I understand how things ebb and flow in the business. I think something that I didn't know as well, and I could probably just attribute that to my youth, is really how much relationships matter in terms of business and your business and getting new business. Relationships are everything, and without them, you can't build a business. You can't have a startup. It's all about how you relate to people. I think I had some inkling of that when I was a project manager, because it really was my job to sort of manage all the different moving parts of the project and interact with, the tech team, the design team, the account team. And so I think that's what I was doing, but I wasn't really clear on just how important building those relationships were, and how critical they are to business. And so that's something that that's a word of advice that I think that I would also pass on is your relationships are going to be everything.
I'm always curious with founders, and you might have more than one, but who's a founder that you admire and why?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I have so many. Can I say, okay, maybe it's not someone I could name, but I will say that this kind of founder is is one that I find to be inspiring. It's people that, when things aren't always great, and they can be forthcoming about it and honest, as a founder, and talk to the team and say, hey, whether it's we're having a rough month, or we have to shut down, or our business model does not work, or we've got to pivot. I think those types of founders who can do that, who can take the L, so to speak, and still keep going. I think those are the types of founders that I admire the most.
What's the next big milestone you're focused on? I like the laugh.
Well, because I don't know if I want to say it.
Okay.
I think I want to continue to So because of all of this, purpose-driven business and purpose-driven work that we've been doing, what I'm thinking of doing is actually shifting the entire mission of the agency to do more work that way. So that's a milestone that I think I'm still formulating, but it's something that I'm leading towards. So that could be exciting as well. And just, I'd love to probably join a VC firm as a partner at some point too. I think I will assess once I'm done with my EIR program. Typically, when you're in an EIR program at a VC firm, it means it has typically meant that you're working on your next big idea. But that's definitely, I'm good in terms of startups. I think I've done that, and I think I'm ready to step onto the other side. And so the work that I'm doing is really refreshing. And I definitely, as I mentioned before, think that that's another way a significant way to make a significant difference. So I think that maybe moving into a partner role at a firm is something that I'm looking forward to potentially doing.
For listeners out there, how can they follow what you're doing, your work, your journey? I know you're on Twitter and you've got a website. Maybe you can share a couple places for them to follow along in what you're doing. Those
are the primary places. I am more active on Twitter than I am anywhere else. I do have a desire and a goal of mine to blog more and talk more about my journey in that way. But I've, as of right now, I've not been able to do that as much as I would like. So I would say Twitter is the number one way to reach out to me. I'm fairly responsive, as you well know.
Yes. And what's the handle?
The handle is at Sian Morson, at SIAN MORSON.
Awesome. Yeah, and that is how we met. And if you follow Sian on Twitter, you'll see her website, and you'll see you're very good at your Twitter bio. It's got cross-culture ventures and backstage and a book and a link and all sorts of things. The one thing I love on your website, and I just have to say this, the ultimate multi-hyphenate.
I forgot that I wrote that.
Oh yeah, I was going to ask you who wrote it, and you wrote it, but it's great.
I did write it because you know what? I also am a Gemini, so I'm a jack of all trades, and I like to do a lot of different things. And so I think that the website does a really good job of representing and showing all of the different things that I'm involved in. So yeah, I am.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Founder's Mind. Check back this week to listen to Sian on The Founder's Mind Tangent, where we discuss how doing good in the world is good for business. On the next full episode, I have Roman Bodnarchuk, founder and CEO of N5R AI. Make sure you don't miss any awesome wisdom from guests of The Founder's Mind, and be sure to subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play, and follow along on social at The Founder's Mind. You can also find more information about guests, their book recommendations, and other insights on thefoundersmind.com.
In the world, going through all of this insanity, and try to bring new ideas, make them a reality. Illuminate in the thoughts, make it a priority to implement what you learn. What you get is what you be. In a world full of noise, hard to find that clarity to try to lead subtly, never full of vanity, and try to change something small or try to change humanity. Power forward through the dark, founder's mind is what you see.